Fighting and argument is a part and parcel of married life. There's no way around it. From division of labor to parenting styles, parents will fight about everything. But how nasty can this get? Especially when we have our little children watching our bickering and our quarreling, and sometimes even our physical exchange. Do you know that these children watching us fight can have a negative impact on their physical and their mental health? Come on in with me to this video and let's see the negative impact that our fighting has on the lives of our children. Hello everyone, this is Chichi Dagogo Wariso, aka the Storybook Lady as I like to call myself, and you are welcome to this video. So like I said in my intro, we're going to be talking about the effects of parents or couples fighting in front of their children. Of course, it doesn't have positive effects on the children. It does have negative effects and can be resolved properly such that it will not affect the lives of these children. But if left unresolved, it could actually lead even onto the adulthood of these young children. So we as parents, we need to learn the effects. We need to know what our fighting or our unnecessary quarrel, like I call it sometimes, has to do with the lives of our children. Yes, we are allowed to have disagreements. We are human beings and we're supposed to quarrel once in a while. But how can we resolve these things without leaving a sore taste in the mouth of our children? That's what we're here to learn today. So the negative effect that it has on children is one, aggression. It makes our children very, very aggressive because they see you arguing, they see you fighting, they see you exchanging words with each other, so they believe that is the norm and they will naturally copy especially what you do. Secondly, it leaves these children in a very terrible state of emotional distress. Every time they see their parents fighting, trust me, if you check the blood pressure of those children at that point in time, it will either be too low or it will be hitting the high heavens. So yes, our fighting and our quarreling, especially in the early stages of their lives, it leaves them with very terrible emotional distress, which makes them become insecure, especially when they grow up. Also, it could actually lead to failure in relationships, not just even in adulthood, even amongst their own peers, amongst their own siblings, because they don't see the need why they should have a cordial relationship with other people when their parents do not have such kind of relationship with themselves at home. They understand that this is the way to go, and then they just take it on from there. It also leads to health problems. A lot of times, children eventually turn to food as a friend or as a succor for these kind of problems that they experience when their parents fight. Sometimes they overeat or they undereat. A lot of times they find trouble sleeping. Sometimes they could have a tummy ache or they could just have a headache once their parents start quarreling. Even a lot of times it could lead to phobias. When you listen to some children, when I talk to some children and they say, oh, I have fear of this, I have fear of the dark, and when you go back to the root cause of the problem, you find out that it actually started because their parents were always arguing or their parents were just always bickering at each other. It also causes low self-esteem. I'm going to do a video after this on how to build self-confidence or self-esteem in our children. Mixed feelings of shame, guilt, unworthiness, and helplessness caused due to witnessing domestic violence can take a toll on the mental health of a child. A lot of times the children sometimes even see it as them being the cause of the problem, and it could actually make them struggle to find their own self-esteem or maintain their self-esteem both in personal and professional fronts. They find it difficult to concentrate on their studies because there's nobody to supervise them at home. They have eating disorders, they have physical issues, they go into substance use and abuse, and then they also have a negative look on life. So as we can see, parents, These are some, not all, of the negative effects that our fighting, our quarreling, our exchange of words has on these children. So what are the signs that we as parents should know that our arguments are affecting our children? Sometimes they might not just say anything, but we need to look out for telltale signs on our children or around our children when we start arguing. The child starts crying or seeking attention the minute he sees his parents arguing. Sometimes the child just becomes absolutely quiet when people start arguing. He looks and talks like he's insecure. He's scared when he sees his parents yell at each other. When the children tend to fight with their peers or not get along with other children, they don't mingle much and they're termed antisocial. They show signs of abnormal behavior. They start to blame themselves when their parents are fighting. They show signs of depression. They do poorly in school and in co-curricular activities. They prefer to be away from their parents. And then a lot of times they complain of headaches, stomach aches, or some other health issues just to divert their parents from fighting. So we as parents, it's not just about exchanging words with your husband or wanting to set the table right or wanting to set the record straight. Also remember that your actions take a toll on the lives of these children. So whenever you guys want to go into a fight or whenever there's tension mounting, sometimes, a lot of times, not just sometimes, look at the face of your child. Once, if you see that your child is not happy or your child they sense it when there's tension. The children know when their parents are angry at each other. Like my daughter would tell you, oh mommy, I know daddy is angry at you, but don't worry, it will be fine. Even the little one will come and also tell you, mommy, sorry, don't cry. So they actually sense it. They feel it. So don't feel, no, their children, what do they know? That's the mistake that so many parents make. And they just go about doing what they do, quarreling, arguing, exchanging words, hitting themselves, tossing things at each other, using foul language at each other, not knowing that the children are copying these things that they do. Remember I said earlier that our children are around Xerox. We actually taught them to copy. So they don't have any other job in life than to emulate exactly what we do. So we as parents, we need to look out for these signs. Once you see these signs, then you should know, you should call it quits. You should know how to resolve it amicably with your husband. So what do we keep in mind when you're fighting in front of your children? Like I mentioned earlier, there are certain things that you shouldn't do. There are certain things that you shouldn't say in front of your children. Nobody says you can't have arguments. It's obvious that couples will have their share of arguments. But these fights shouldn't go as far as frightening the children. How do I mean? Never abuse each other physically or call each other ugly names in front of your children. Avoid screaming at each other and threatening each other, especially when it comes to divorce or abandonment. Don't do that, because that out of control rage that you and your spouse have can set a bad example for your children and impact in their own relationships and eventually their marriages. It's inevitable that you argue with your spouse or you disagree with your spouse about certain rules around the house, but make sure you don't bring it up when the children are around. Try to resolve your arguments when they first start to arise so that it doesn't become a major issue. Avoid dragging the arguments for too long. Resolve it with maturity and do so in front of your children. It's always best to resolve your issues in front of your children so that they understand the language of love. They understand the language of the fact that it's allowed to have issues. It's allowed to quarrel, but yes, we have resolved it maturely, and they too can also learn how to resolve their own issues. Never involve the children in your arguments. Once your child is made to feel that he or she has to choose a parent or take sides, then you've already broken the home. If the parent feels, oh no, daddy's always been the quarrelsome one, so I want to stay in mommy's camp, or there will be a division, some children will be with the dad, some children will be with them on the mom's side, you've inevitably broken your home. After an argument with your spouse, assure your children that you and your spouse still love and respect each other, and the children are not to be blamed for the fight. Make them understand that as parents, it's allowed to have arguments, but you have resolved them. Try not to lose your temper in front of your children, and please apologize to them if you do so. So many parents, especially Nigerian parents, don't see the need to apologize to their parents. But I was taught by a very wonderful uncle of mine that no matter how small a child is, that child has his rights. You should really ask for permission before you take their things. You shouldn't just assume that because you bought it for them, so you have the right to use their stuff. No, I put it to you parents, and I say no as the children's advocate. No, you need to take permission from them before you take their stuff. So also, you need to also learn to apologize to them when you do wrong. This will teach them that when you lose your temper in the course of a conflict, it's allowed to also, you can also learn how to resolve it or calm yourself down. Avoid talking ill about a spouse in front of your children. Refrain from using bad language. Instead, use a calm tone. Talk it out. Talk out your problems. Do not use the silent tactic. Do not use the silent tactic of silent treatment, walking out, or withdrawing or sulking, because your children will see it that is the best way to resolve issues. And then finally, there's one thing that some parents do, most times it's the mothers that are guilty of this, and it's called capitulation. When you and your husband have a fight, you'll be like, okay, let me just suck it all in. Okay, just so that the children don't know that we're having an issue, let me take all the blame. Or maybe you have a very abusive husband who hits you, who beats you, and you would not just want to do anything, okay, for the sake of the children. My dear, you will just die in that marriage because you don't want to fight for your right, or you don't want to resolve it the right way or the proper way. So please, 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 in as much as you're trying to resolve your issues in a matured way, do not try to give in to the problem. Do not accept a blame or a fault that is not yours. If your husband accuses you of something, you prove to him that you are not the one that did it, or you are in the right if he says you are in the wrong, so that your children will learn how to stand up for themselves. If not, they will be what we call here in Nigeria OES members. Everything they say is okay by me. What the chairman says is okay by me. That's not a very good way to live. And then finally, how do we diminish the effects? What do I mean by that? Yes, a disagreement could have gotten out of hand. Terrible words were said to each other. Maybe you didn't mean it, and you didn't realize that the children were listening. Maybe you even tried to have that argument in the room, but your voices were just raised too high enough that the children actually heard all of the nasty things that you said to each other. But you could really take steps to lessen the effect that it's going to have on the children. How do you do that? You discuss the fight with your children. You don't need to go into specifics, but you need to make the child understand that, yes, Daddy and I had an argument the other night and things got out of hand. We didn't have the same opinion on certain issues. I know it was wrong for us to fight, but we have resolved our issue. Now the child will understand that, okay, Mommy and Dad actually fight once in a while, but they resolve their issues amicably. Reassure your kids that no matter what happens, you guys are still one big happy family. Remind them that it was just an argument, and it's not going to result to any bigger problems. Remind them that you still love them and you're not going to get divorced. Assuming you mentioned something like that. Remind them that for their sake, you're still going to be there for them, that they are not going to lose you anytime soon. Also, bring closure. Make sure your children understand that you're still a strong family. Explain the arguments. Explain that arguments happen sometimes and that people could lose their temper. However, you still love each other despite the arguments. Lead with empathy. Open the dialogue. Even if your husband is angry, or is forming vexing, or is forming not talking to you, because of your children, for the sake of your children, and so that there will be peace and harmony in the house, open a dialogue. Walk up to your husband. honey, okay, I'm sorry, we had an argument the other day. We didn't agree over certain issues, but I think we need to end this quarrel. I don't think this thing is healthy enough for the family. I feel that's the right way we should do it. And then once you do that, as much as you can, let him know that, okay, put yourself in my shoes. If you were in my position, what would you have done? And if I were in your position, this is what I would have done. Once you and your husband get to have that level of discussion or dialogue, it tends to calm down the raging temper that was already rumbling in the house. Remember that you're on the same team, so you guys should not act like you're enemies. But yes, you have arguments, yes, you have fights, but don't make it look like you guys can never ever come back again together. Also, constructive criticism only works when your partner can do something about what happened. So you can also criticize each other constructively. Your husband could tell you, I didn't like what you said, I didn't like what you did, I didn't like the way you went about this. And you could say, okay, you too, I didn't like the way you did this, I didn't like the way you did that. And everybody lays out the cards on the table and tries to, okay, I'm sorry I did this. You will say, I'm sorry I did that. Sometimes some men are proud. Some men are very proud and might not want to say sorry. But as long as you've put it out there, as long as you've apologized to him, a clear conscience, they say, fears no accusation. So once you put it out to him and say, honey, I'm sorry I did this, but I also didn't like the way you talked to me. I didn't like the way the kind of words or the kind of language you used on me. And let it be there. He will, even if he doesn't say, I'm sorry, but he's going to think about it. And the next time you guys have an argument, because you have told him to his face that you didn't like the kind of words he used at you, trust me, he would try as much as possible not to use those same words again. And everything that needs to be said has to be said with kindness. So, again, if you believe that your fights cannot end, if you believe that your fights are in such a way affecting your children's health, please get therapeutic help. A lot of times, we might argue, a couple might argue and argue and argue and might not just be resolving their issues. Maybe it's time for you to get a counselor. Maybe you need to talk to a spiritual person to help realign you or to help you guys rediscover yourselves. So finally, parents, in conclusion, no matter how healthy your relationship is, there's bound to be few squabbles here and there, and occasional disagreements usually aren't a big deal. Mature conversations, keeping it generally out of the kids' view, and refusing to name call all show a child how to deal with disagreements in a healthy manner. But more serious conflict definitely takes a toll on the children. So if you find yourself in high conflict relationships, staying together for the kids might not do your children any favor. It's important to seek help to reduce the conflict or make changes to the relationship so that your children can grow up healthier and happier. Finally, this is Chichi Dagogo Wariso, aka the Storybook Lady, as I like to call myself, and I am signing out. Remember, if you have not subscribed, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and don't forget to turn on the post notification bell so that you could get more content on parenting tips, intentional parenting, happy parenting, and how to lead a happy home. The aim of all of this is to bring up wonderful and beautiful children so that our crop of youth for tomorrow will be well groomed and well trained. Thank you, everybody. Bye.